Hello bookish people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan. In today's video, we are doing the mid-year book freakout tag. This is the very first time I am doing this tag on my channel, so I am so excited. There are 13 prompts, and as I was reading these prompts, the first book that came to mind for literally every question was Fourth Wing, except for the one biggest disappointment. Obviously, Fourth Wing did not come to that one, but like every other question, I was like, Fourth Wing, Fourth Wing, Fourth Wing, Fourth Wing. But like, I know I cannot just show you one book, but just know in my heart that Fourth Wing is the answer to pretty much all of these questions, but I will show you other books. All these other books are secondary. But Fourth Wing is number one in my heart because I am still in my Fourth Wing bubble. I am utterly obsessed with it. And we're going to talk about it first because the very first prompt is the best book you have read so far in 2023. And I feel like we all know what I'm going to say. If I didn't say this, it would be a crime. That is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. In this book, you are following our main character, Violet, and her whole life, she has been training to be a scribe. But when it is time to come of age to go to the war college, her mom's like, yeah, no daughter of mine is going to be a scribe. You are going to the dragon riding quadrant. And her mom has all this power because she is a general in the army. But the problem with the dragon riding quadrant is it is the most deadly quadrant. You could be a healer, you could be a scribe, or you could be a dragon rider and probably have a very high mortality rate in the dragon riding quadrant because people are murdering people, dragons are killing people, people are dying just like in battle. And then once you get out of the college, your life still isn't safe because you are on the front lines, so you also have a high risk of death. So her sister is so mad at her mom, but now we're just getting into the general plot, okay? Her sister is so mad at her mom, you're like, oh my god, you're literally gonna sentence our sister to die by putting her in the dragon riding quadrant. Her mom's like, I don't care, she better die as a dragon rider better than living her life as a scribe. So it's about Violet being totally untrained for this, going into this dragon riding quadrant where death is everywhere and navigating this college, navigating trying to stay alive. Then there's Xaden, who is her enemy. It's an enemies to lovers romance, and oh my god, I ate it up. It was so good. It's so hard to describe this book without giving away spoilers because everything is so complex, and I feel like going into this book, it's so much better just to go into it blind and be along for the ride and learn things as you go. So that's all I'm going to tell you about the synopsis. Just trust me, just read it, go in totally blind, don't listen to people's TikToks, like literally just turn off social media until you read this book so you don't get any spoilers, and then you can go back on social media, okay? But priority number one is reading this book. The next prompt is the best sequel you have read so far in 2023, and for me, that is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. This is really what got me into adult fantasy romance. I feel like I haven't really read too much fantasy romance, but then I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night for a video that I did, and I was absolutely in love with that story, and I quickly grabbed the sequel, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. The first one in the series I rated 4 stars, but the sequel I rated 5 stars. This was so good. In this book, you are following our two main characters, Oriah and Rain. Oriah is a human growing up in the vampire world, and her dad is actually the king of the vampires. And she has to go in this tournament called the Kajari, which is basically kind of like a Hunger Games tournament, to get a wish. And if she wins, she gets a wish from the goddess of Naxia. Through the tournament, you should make alliances with other vampires to make it till the end. Again, very Hunger Games-esque. And one of the alliances she makes is with a vampire named Rain. And it is an enemies to lovers romance as well. Like, enemies to lovers in a fantasy romance. Oh my god, what can compare? And this book was absolutely amazing. I devoured this book. It is a chunky book, and I read it so quickly. I was just never bored. I just was totally immersed in this world, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's so funny reading this series. I was like, nothing can top this. Like, this is amazing. And then I read Fourth Wing, and I was like, oh, the Crown of Naxia, what? No, just kidding. I still really enjoyed this series, but Fourth Wing definitely took over my brain, and I kind of stopped thinking about it. But if we're talking about best sequels, this was definitely one of the best sequels that I have read this year. The next one is a new release you haven't read this year but want to, and for this one, I'm going to say A Last Violent Call by Chloe Gong. This is 2 novellas in the Foul Lady Fortune world, These Violence Delight duology world. These are the two. I love them. I think they're so stunning. So we have A Foul Thing, and then we have This Foul Murder. This one we're following Roma and Juliet, and this one we're following, oh my god, what are their names? I forgot. Marshall and Benedict. And yeah, I've been dying to read these. I pre-ordered them. I was so excited when they came in the mail, but I just haven't gotten around to reading them yet. So I definitely want to read these, especially soon, because I need to read them before Foul Huntsman or something. I don't know, the sequel to Foul Lady Fortune. I need to read these before that comes out, and I think that's coming out in like September or October. So yeah, this is like my number one priority of new releases that I own but haven't read yet. Here we go, Chloe Gong. More fantasy romance. You guys, I am just in my fantasy romance era over here. Next question is a most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And of course, I have to say Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the sequel to Fourth Wing and it's actually coming out in November. So I just love Rebecca Yarros so much for the fact that she did not make us wait a whole year to get the sequel. She's like, here you go, kids. Have it in November. Have fun with it. And I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is an early Christmas present. And I already have it pre-ordered because of course I need a first edition with the sprayed edges to match my other one because it's stunning, it's gorgeous, and honestly, like, I'm happy I have the one with the sprayed edges, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm mad I got it from Target because ew. Why does Target do this? And if they are going to do this, they should do the Barnes & Noble stickers that easily peel off. No, this one, it's like when you rip it off, it has like that paperish underneath and it leaves a residue. It's like, Target, what are you doing? Stop ruining the books. Please stop ruining the books. So I pre-ordered it from Amazon. And hopefully it doesn't have that annoyingness. But anyway, yeah, no, the sequel to Fourth Wing is the one I'm most anticipated for. It's called Iron Flame, and yeah, there you go. It's already on pre-order. Next, we're talking about the biggest disappointment. What book disappointed me the most? There's a few books I read this year that disappointed me, but I would have to say The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson would be number one in my most disappointing because I actually DNF'd the book at 30%. I'm reading it on my Kindle. I DNF'd it at 30%. I'm waiting for the physical copy to come in because I think maybe I could finish it if I read the physical copy because then I can visually see how much like left in the book. But the way that you get these secret projects through your Kindle, they're not properly formatted, so they don't have page numbers. So you get the percentage, you get like how many minutes left in the chapter, but you don't necessarily get to see you're on this page out of this many pages, which kind of bothers me. Anyway, so I feel like I just need to read the physical copy and that will help my reading experience, but I don't think it's going to be anything more than a 3-star read. I'm just not really enjoying this book, but I did spend like $200 on the Kickstarter, so I kind of have to read all the books. So yeah, this one is my biggest disappointment. Basically, you're following this guy who he wakes up in medieval England and he has no idea where he is, but he knows that he's from modern day, present day. He's like, this is obviously olden times. He's like, but what am I doing here? How did I get here? What is going on? I don't remember anything. And he's just trying to navigate finding out who he is and why he's there, and there's just like action and adventure thrown into it. And although it is like pitched as a fantasy novel, it is very much feels like a sci-fi novel, and it's like a historical sci-fi fantasy, and it's just not my vibe. I'm not enjoying it. But I will read it when I get the physical copy in the mail. Next is my biggest surprise of the year, and what's really funny about this is my biggest disappointment was A Frugal Wizard, which was a sci-fi book, and my biggest surprise of the year is The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi, which is also a sci-fi book. So simultaneously we have like the biggest disappointment being sci-fi and one of my best, most surprising being a sci-fi as well. Don't you love that? And that is why it is the most surprising book to me. I rated this book 5 stars. I absolutely loved this book and was obsessed with this book, and now I'm anticipating John Scalzi's latest release that is coming out this September. Like, I think I have found a new favorite sci-fi author, which is very rare for me, but sci-fi is just not really my genre. I read Upgrade by Blake Crouch. I didn't really love it, and I was like, okay, maybe sci-fi is not for me. I read this. It is totally for me. I rated this 5 stars. And this one's also shorter too. It's under 3 pages. And what I really enjoy about this book is I feel like it's very accessible for non-sci-fi readers. And there's not like too much crazy terminology thrown at you. And also this feels like you're watching like an action movie. It feels like you're watching like Jurassic Park or something. And it's just, I again was totally immersed in the world, and I just absolutely love this book. You're following this guy, and he is like a food app delivery driver, but it's like a made-up food app, right, that goes in this fictional world. He is a food app delivery driver, and one of the guys he is consistently bringing food to is like, hey, do you want to do this? Because like I actually have a job for you. I'm leaving out of town if you want to come with me. I do like animal preservation, and I think you'd be great for this job. He's like, okay. So he goes and he takes them, and he's going to this like secret place. They go into this other world where there's kaiju, which I guess are from like Japanese folklore, think Godzilla. And he's like, yes, this is another world. We found it, and there's all these kaiju here, and we are here to protect them. And it is just such a fun novel. Like, I super loved this novel. So I would say this is my most surprising in terms of the genre. Like, this is a book that I found the premise of it to be interesting, but the fact that I read this so quickly and rated it 5 stars, I am so happy with this book, and that's why I would say it's my most surprising. Next is a new favorite author. Could be a debut author or somebody that is just new to you. And for that, I am torn between 2 authors, and that is Rebecca Yarros of Fourth Wing and Carissa Broadbent of The Crowns of Naxia duology. So both of these books I absolutely loved. I already talked about them, and specifically this one, I remember reading the quotes while reading this book. Even though my boyfriend had no idea what was going on in this book, I was literally reading him quotes from this book because it was just so good, and I was just obsessed with it. It's not even just like the action in this book and the story was good, but like the actual lines themselves and the way she describes things and the inner monologue of the characters was just so great, and there's so many quotable moments in here. And then of course we have Rebecca Yarros, who I think this book was perfectly plotted. I absolutely loved it. I thought the pacing was amazing. I loved the characters again, and also like the writing style, like just everything about this book pulled me in and intrigued me. So a new favorite author, like the fact that I read both of these in 1 year, like I literally cannot decide between Carissa Broadbent and Rebecca Yarros. They are tied for me. So yeah, this one I guess I could say Carissa Broadbent more because I have read, this is my 3rd book by her this year. The first one was obviously The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Then I read her duology, not her duology, but her novella, Six Scorched Roses. So I have more experience with Carissa Broadbent. This is my only book by Rebecca Yarros. So I think because I've had more experience with her, we'll go with Carissa Broadbent. But like, it's so hard to leave this one out. Next one is newest fictional crush. And for this one, like, okay guys, this is where I'm getting annoying. This is where I'm talking about the same book over and over. Zayden from Fourth Wing. I am absolutely obsessed with Zayden. He is one of the best book boyfriends ever. Like the acts. Okay, so I would say Zayden's love language is definitely acts of service. Like, the things that he does for her is just so sweet. And, like, yes, he has that protective nature in him as well. But then there's just, like, things that he does for her that are just so insanely sweet. And I just really loved him as a character. What I also love about him is that everybody's worried about Violet being in this dragon riding quadrant and how she's so weak and fragile because of her medical condition. He just sees her for exactly who she is, and he just constantly pushes her to be her best, and he's like protective of her but also doesn't stand in her way. There's another character in this book, Dane, and he is super overprotective of Violet, right? And he is like, oh, I don't want you doing this, I don't want you doing that, whereas Zayden pushes her to do the things that she is scared of doing, do the things that are uncomfortable for her, because he knows deep down she can do them, and he always has her back no matter what. And I just absolutely love him in this book. I think he's just an amazing book boyfriend. And then also too, I really want to do a reread. If you read this book and you know the ending of this book and you know the big plot twist in the last sentence and the oh my god moment, I think rereading this book, knowing what we know at the end, will just make him an even better book boyfriend upon a second reread. And also, have you seen the fan art of this man? Okay, like, that's all I need to say. Number 9, newest favorite character. And again, I have 2 answers. I have to say Violet from Fourth Wing. Utterly obsessed with her, but we've talked about this enough. Number 2, who came in second place? Tress from Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I absolutely love this book, and I specifically love Tress in this book because I think she is such a strong female main character. She is such a go-getter. She's also a problem solver, and she's really clever, but she's also compassionate, and she has a lot of empathy for people, and she knows what she wants. She goes after it, and I just absolutely loved this book, and I loved following Tress's journey from being on the island and the journey she takes to save the love of her life. And it was just such a fun read, and again, I just really love Tress. She's just such a joy of a character to read about, and she is just such a pleasure to be around. And this book was my first 5-star read of the year, so although I've read a lot of great fantasy books this year, this one does have a special place in my heart because it was my first 5-star, and it's my first Brandon Sanderson novel, and what a way to kick off Brandon Sanderson. And then to follow it up with The Frugal Wizard, like, yeah, that was not a great follow-up, but you know, this one was a winner. It was 5 stars, and I really love Tress. Okay, next one is Book That Made You Cry. I showed it in my vlog. This book had me bawling. And I'm not going to say why or whatever, but like we all know why. If you read the book, you know where I was crying, okay? That's all I'm going to say. I've watched other people's reading vlogs of Fourth Wing, and everybody is crying at this exact moment. So yeah, and it's not that I just want to keep talking about this book, but this is genuinely like, I don't know if I've ever cried from a book before. I feel like maybe I have once, but I just can't remember. I think this might be the first one that I've ever cried at. And so obviously it was the only one I could possibly put into place for a book that made you cry. I'm not somebody who cries at books very much, but the amount of emotional attachment that I had to these characters in these worlds and everything that was going on. Okay, guys, the water gates were like flowing, okay? Tears were streaming down my face, but it was good. It was cathartic. It was fun. Next one is Book That Made You Happy, and honestly, I couldn't choose between these two books. The first one being Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Honestly, this was the first one that came to mind when I thought of a book that made me happy. This is just such a fun, lighthearted romance. I said it in my video, the reading vlog I was doing this in. This book is cotton candy. It's light, fluffy, and sweet. And it was just a really fun time. In this book, you're following our two main characters. You're following our main character, Annie, and she is a florist, and she falls in love with a bodyguard named Will. And it's like a bad boy, good girl romance. There's not like any smut in it. It is a spice-free romance. So it's just really pure joy and happiness that happens in this book. It also takes place in a small town, so it gives you all the vibes and happiness. And then the other one I was like debating on talking about, which I guess this will be like an honorable mention, would be Highly Suspicious and Unfigurably Cute by Talia Hibbert. This is another book that I absolutely loved. And this book was also just such a fun book to read because I really love our main character Celine, and the banter that between the two main characters in this book was top tier. And Celine has such a dry sense of humor. She has such a sarcastic personality, and that is exactly the humor that I love. So that's why I really enjoyed reading this. In this book, you were following these two high schoolers, and they used to be best friends, and now they're not. So it's a bit of like enemies to lovers, but also kind of mixed with friends to lovers because they were best friends, which honestly this is the only friends to lovers romance that really worked for me. And I think it's because it was ex best friends to lovers instead of like best friends to lovers. It was like ex, so there's that enemies and there's that tension there, but it's also like the friendship was there as well. So I think friends to lovers can work for me if there's some sort of drama and tension. And yeah, this one was just such a fun time to read about, again with their banter. But oh yeah, I was getting into the synopsis. So in this book, you're following these two high schoolers. They're ex-best friends, and they go on this camping adventure thing together in order to win a scholarship. And it's just about them reconnecting, doing this thing together, and it's just fun. It's a delight. It's a joy. It is a YA contemporary romance, and I almost rated it 5 stars, which is saying a lot for a 25-year-old, okay? Next one is Most Beautiful Book You Have Bought or Received This Year, and this one is a tie between these two. So obviously the sprayed edges, like if it wasn't for this Target sticker, this would probably be like close to number 1. But I obviously have to go with this one as my number 1, which is Tress of the Emerald Sea, because it is a leather-bound book. It has all this beautiful embossing and metallic gold in it. And look at these end papers, and the artwork in this book is absolutely stunning. Like, oh, what are we doing? But like, look at that. There's color inside the book, you guys. It is absolutely gorgeous. Like, look at these pictures. I am just obsessed. So yeah, this is definitely one of the most beautiful books that I have purchased and owned this year. And I'm definitely going to be receiving the other copies of The Secret Projects this year. So we'll see which one at the end of the year is really the prettiest. But so far, this has to be one of the most gorgeous books in my collection. And the very last prompt is books you want to read by the end of the year. I have quite a few books to talk about. This is, I guess, kind of an end of the year TBR, but like, let's just get into them. I have 2 singular books, and then I have 2 big series that I want to read. So let's get into the singular books. The first one is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I believe this movie is coming out at the end of the year around November time. So obviously I have to read the book before the movie comes out. I love Hunger Games. I think it is such a fun series, and also there's so much commentary that goes into the series. I was just watching Katie Colson's like hour-long reading vlog of rereading the Hunger Games series, and I didn't finish it yet because I was watching it while I was cooking dinner, and I'm gonna finish it while I'm cooking dinner tonight. But yeah, I just maybe want to reread this series, and I don't have time to reread the series, but I do have time to read the prequel before the movie comes out, so I definitely want to be reading this by the end of the year. This one, you're focusing on President Snow when he was younger and his experience with the Hunger Games. So yeah, we have this book here, and as you can see, I got it at the thrift store for $2.99, and I actually thrifted this like right after it came out. Like, somebody bought it and donated it immediately. So this has been sitting on my shelves since I was living in a studio apartment, and we went from a studio apartment, well, we went from a studio apartment to this house, but we've been in this house for like 2 years now, so it's been sitting on my shelves for quite some time. Okay, the next one is A City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. I need to finish the Mortal Instruments series by the end of this year. There is absolutely no excuses. I cannot end 2023 without finishing the Mortal Instruments series. This series has taken me so long to finish because I don't know, I was just trying to binge it through, and then I got bored of it because I was just binging it too much, and now I have 1 book left and I just need to finish it because I want to continue on. I want to read Infernal Devices, I want to read Dark Artifices, I want to read all the other books as well, like Chain of Gold, all that stuff. I want to read it all, but in order to do that, I gotta read this one. But also, so much time has passed since the last one. I'm like scared to read it because I'm scared I forgot things, but like I just need to do it, okay? And now let's get into the two series. The first series I want to read this year, by the end of this year, is ACOTAR. All of ACOTAR, just by the end of the year, you know, no big deal. I mean, I'm sure I could binge this. And how long would it take me to read this? I have no idea. They're quite large. Well, this one's not super large, but this one's super large, and this one's kind of skinny, and these ones are mediocre size. Not mediocre books, but like, you know, like average size, I should say. So yeah, ACOTAR. Now that I'm in my fantasy romance era, as we can tell, it is time to read the #1 fantasy romance series circulating TikTok, booktube, and everywhere. Also, finally, time to read some Sarah J. Maas. The only book I've ever read by Sarah J. Maas is the first book in the Throne of Glass series. Even though I own all her books, that's the only one that I have read by her. So yeah. And speaking of Throne of Glass series, these are the rest of the books that I want to read for the rest of the year. Just the entire Throne of Glass series. I read the first Throne of Glass in January, so we could just like take that one out of the stack. But every other book, yeah, this is all the books I want to read by the end of 2023. Is that too ambitious? All of Throne of Glass, all of ACOTAR, City of Heavenly Fire, and Battle of Songbirds and Stinks? Like, I literally can't read anything else. Like, this is gonna take me the next 6 months to do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was so much fun. We need to have more book tags on booktube. Like, where are they at? Someone create some book tags, okay? Because this was so much fun. I love doing it, reading little prompts, pulling things off my shelves. Like, what a fun way to talk about books, and books that maybe you wouldn't normally talk about. Although Fourth Wing was in this video way too much, but no one can blame me, okay? Because it was amazing, it was superior, it was 5 stars, and I'm obsessed with it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Make sure to subscribe down below. Bye!